Welcome. Tonight, I will tell you a story about a battle. But this battle is not fought with swords, or shields, or arrows. It is a battle fought in the silence of the mind. Our story begins high in the mountains, at a place called the Temple of Iron Will. This temple sat on the very edge of a tall cliff, surrounded by gray clouds and cold wind. Usually, the temple was a place of perfect peace. But on this specific morning, the air felt different. The wind did not blow. The birds did not sing. It was too quiet. It felt like a storm was holding its breath, waiting for something to break. In this temple lived a young student named Kale. If you looked at Kale, you would see a strong warrior. He was young, tall, and powerful. When he lifted heavy stones, his muscles did not shake. When he ran up the mountain paths, he did not get tired. To the outside world, he looked ready for anything. But inside, Kale was not strong. Inside, his mind was a storm. Kale suffered from a noisy mind. He was always worrying about tomorrow, or regretting yesterday. His thoughts jumped around like wild monkeys in a cage. He could not find silence. And this was dangerous, because today was the most important day of his life. Today was the day of the final trial. Kale stood at the edge of the cliff, looking out at the thick, white mist. He closed his eyes and tried to force his brain to be quiet, but the thoughts only became louder. He gripped his hands into tight fists. He did not know that this evening would change everything. He did not know that the hardest part of the trial would not be the mountain, but the shadows inside his own head. Kale walked down to the training yard. It was a wide, flat circle of hard dirt, surrounded by tall stone walls. In the center of the yard stood a wooden target, painted with a red circle. Kale picked up his bow. He touched the smooth wood and took a deep breath. Focus, he whispered to himself. Just focus. He pulled an arrow from his bag and placed it against a string. He pulled the string back until it touched his cheek. His arms were steady. His breathing was slow. For a moment, the world was silent. Thwack! The arrow flew through the air and hit the exact center of the red circle. Perfect. Kale smiled. He reached for a second arrow. I am ready, he thought. I can do this. But then, the world interrupted him. A black crow landed on the top of the stone wall. It looked down at Kale and let out a loud, harsh cry, caw. Caw. It was a small sound. It was just a bird. But for Kale, it was like an explosion. His attention snapped away from the target and went to the bird. His mind started to ask questions. Why is it here? Is it bad luck? Is it laughing at me? In that split second of distraction, his fingers slipped. The bow string snapped forward too early. The arrow did not fly straight. It wobbled in the air, curved to the left, and missed the target completely. It hit the stone wall with a sad clack and fell into the dirt. Kale's face turned red. He threw his bow onto the ground. Stupid bird! He shouted. The bird is not stupid. Kale! The voice was quiet, but it commanded immediate respect. Kale froze. He turned around to see Master Ilera standing in the shadows of the temple gate. Master Ilera was very old. Her hair was white like snow, and her back was slightly bent. But her eyes were clear and sharp, like pieces of blue glass. She did not look angry. She looked disappointed. The bird did only what a bird does, she said softly, walking closer. It made a sound. The wind blows. The leaves fall. The world is noisy. Kale, if you wait for the world to be silent before you can shoot straight, you will never hit your target. Kale looked down at his boots. I can focus. Master, I need quiet. You need discipline. She corrected him. You have strong arms, but a weak mind. You let a tiny noise steal your power. She turned and walked back toward the dark temple doors. Over her shoulder, she added one final warning. You must learn to control this before tonight. Because where you are going, the noises will not be birds. Kale watched her go. He felt a cold shiver run down his back. He knew she was right, but he did not know how to fix it. And that quiet discomfort was about to become something much heavier. Kale did not take the master's advice. Instead, he felt angry. He walked back to his small room and slammed the door. He sat down on the floor, crossed his legs, and closed his eyes. He decided that he would force his mind to be quiet. He would use his strength to crush his distracting thoughts, just like he crushed stones in the garden. I am strong, he told himself. I will not think. I will not fear. Silence. Now. But the mind is not a stone. You cannot crush it. For the next few hours, Kale fought a war inside his head. He tried to push his thoughts away, but they pushed back harder. The more he tried to stop thinking, the more he thought. He thought about the bird in the courtyard. I look so foolish, he thought. He thought about the trial tonight. What if the test is too hard? What if I never become a master? He thought about his family in the village below. They are waiting for me to succeed. I cannot let them down. His thoughts buzzed around him like a swarm of angry bees. He was sweating. His jaw was tight. His breathing was fast and shallow. He was sitting still, but inside, he was running a marathon. The sun went down outside his window. The room became dark. Kale had spent the entire afternoon fighting himself. He had not rested. He had not eaten. He had only created more noise. I just need a little more time, he thought desperately. I can win this battle. Suddenly, a heavy gong sounded from the main temple. Gong! Gong! It was time. Kale opened his eyes. He was exhausted. His head hurt, and his hands were shaking from tension. He stood up, but he did not feel like a warrior. He felt like a man who had already run a long race. He walked out of his room and toward the meeting place. He told himself that he was ready. He thought he still had the strength to fake his way through the trial. He was wrong. Kale arrived at the great gate behind the temple. It was a huge door made of black iron, standing tall against the night sky. Master Alara was waiting for him. She held something in her hands. It was not a weapon. It was a simple, silver bowl. The bowl was filled with water. It was filled to the very top, so full that the water trembled even when the air was still. This is your trial, Master Alara said. Her voice was as cold as the mountain air. You must cross the Valley of Echoes. You must walk from this gate to the Shrine of Silence on the other side. Kale looked at the dark valley beyond the gate. It was a narrow path that twisted through thick, Black trees. He cannot see the end. That is all? Cale asked. I just have to walk? You must carry this bowl, Elara continued. And you must not spill a single drop. Cale reached out and took the bowl. It was heavier than it looked. The water moved dangerously near the edge. He had to freeze his muscles to keep it steady. Listen to me carefully. Cale, Elara said, leaning close. The Valley of Echoes is not a normal place. It reflects your mind. Whatever you fear, you will see. Whatever you worry about, you will hear. The shadows will try to make you look away. She pointed a finger at the water in the bowl. Do not look at the trees. Do not look at the monsters. Keep your eyes on the water. If you look away, you will spill. If you spill, you fail. Cale nodded. He felt a lump in his throat. I understand. Go, she said. Cale stepped through the iron gate. His boots touched the soft dirt of the valley path. Immediately, he felt the air change. It was colder here. He took 2 steps, focusing hard on the silver rim of the bowl. Clang! Behind him, the heavy iron gate slammed shut. Cale heard the loud sound of a lock turning. He did not turn around. He knew he could not go back. By the time the sun went down, nothing in his life would be the same. Cale walked. 1 step. Breathe. 2 steps. Breathe. At first, the valley was silent. There was only the sound of his own boots on the dirt and the soft swish of the water in the bowl. He stared at the water. It was a perfect mirror, reflecting the moon above him. Then, the whispers began. They started low, like the wind in the leaves. But soon, they turned into words. You will drop it, a voice whispered in his left ear. It sounded like his old-school teacher. You were always clumsy. Cale's hand twitched. A small ripple moved across the water in the bowl. He bit his lip. It is not real, he thought. Keep walking. He took another step. The shadows grew longer. To his right, he saw movement. It looked like a pack of wolves running through the trees. He could hear their heavy paws hitting the ground. He could hear them breathing. His body wanted to run. Every muscle in his legs screamed, run, escape, danger. But he could not run. If he ran, the water would spill. He had to walk slowly, like an old man, while his mind screamed in panic. He was sweating now. Drops of sweat fell from his forehead and landed in the silver bowl, mixing with the water. Then, the valley became cruel. Suddenly, right in front of him, a ghost appeared. It looked like a woman with a pale, screaming face. She flew toward him, her mouth wide open, letting out a terrible shriek. Cale gasped. He almost threw the bowl to protect his face. But at the very last second, he remembered Master Elara's words, whatever you see, do not look away from the water. He forced his eyes down. He looked only at the silver rim. He did not defend himself. The ghost flew right through him. It was only cold air. Cale fell to his knees, gasping for breath. He checked the bowl. The water was still there, dancing wildly near the edge, but he had not spilled it. He was safe. He stood up, his legs shaking. He thought the worst was over. But the valley had one final trick, a trick that Cale was not ready for. Cale saw a light ahead. It was the white stone of the Shrine of Silence. He was almost there. He took a deep breath of relief. But suddenly, a figure stepped out from behind a tree and blocked the path. Cale stopped. He looked at the figure, and his blood turned to ice. The person standing in front of him was not a monster. It was not a ghost. It was Cale. It was a perfect copy of him, but its eyes were black and hollow. It was his shadow. The shadow smiled a cruel smile. "You cannot finish," the shadow said. Its voice sounded exactly like Cale's own voice. "You are weak. You always fail. Drop the bowl." Cale did not answer. He gripped the silver bowl tighter. The water rippled dangerously. "Get out of my way," Cale whispered. "No," the shadow said. It reached down and pulled along, sharp sword from its belt. The metal shined in the moonlight. "If you try to pass, I will cut you down." Cale's heart hammered against his ribs. It looked so real, he thought. The sword looks heavy. The danger feels real. The shadow raised the sword high above its head. It prepared to strike. Cale had a choice. If he jumped to the side to dodge the sword, he would spill the water. He would fail the trial. If he stood still and the sword was real, he would die. The shadow swung the sword down. Whoosh! Cale's instinct screamed at him to move. But in that split second, a sudden thought came to him. This valley is my mind. My mind is trying to scare me. If I react, I lose. Cale made his decision. He did not move his feet. He did not lift his arms to protect his head. Instead, he looked down. He focused all his attention on the tiny, clear pool of water in his hands. "I am water," he thought. "I am still." He felt the wind of the sword coming down toward his neck. He felt the cold metal touch his skin. He squeezed his eyes shut. And then, nothing. There was no pain. There was no blood. There was only a soft puff of air, like a breeze blowing through smoke. Cale opened his eyes. The shadow was gone. The path was empty. The sword had passed right through his body, because it was never there at all. Cale took the final few steps. His legs felt heavy, but his hands were steady. He walked up the stone stairs of the shrine and placed a silver bowl on a small table. Clink. The sound was soft and sweet. The bowl was still full. He had not spilled a single drop. Cale fell to his knees. He was shaking. He waited for the monsters to come behind him. He waited for the screams. But there was only silence. "You have done well, Cale." Master Alara stepped out from the shadows of the shrine. She looked at the water in the bowl and smiled. "Perfect," she said. Cale looked up at her, sweating and exhausted. That was terrible, he gasped. The wolves, the ghost, the shadow with the sword. I have never seen such a dangerous place. Master Alara shook her head gently. "Turn around. Cale, look at the valley." Cale turned around to look back at the path he had just walked. He expected to see dark fog and scary trees. He expected to see the monsters waiting for him. But he saw nothing. The sun was beginning to rise. The light touched the valley. There were no wolves. There were no ghosts. There was only a quiet, green forest. The birds were singing regular songs. The wind was just wind. Kale blinked. I don't understand. Where did they go? They were never there. Elara explained. I told you, this is the Valley of Echoes. It has no voice of its own. It only bounces back what you bring into it. She put a hand on his shoulder. You brought your fear, so the valley showed you wolves. You brought your self-doubt, so the valley showed you a shadow that said you would fail. The battle was not out there in the trees. Kale, the battle was entirely in here. She tapped his forehead. Kale looked at the peaceful forest. He realized the truth. The world had not changed. He had changed. He took a deep breath. For the first time in his life, his mind was not jumping like a monkey. It was not buzzing like a bee. It was still, clear, and quiet, just like the water in the bowl. Let's look at Kale's story one more time. Kale was a young student at a mountain temple. He was very strong and fast, but he had a big problem. He could not control his mind. He worried about everything. When he tried to do something important, his thoughts were loud and noisy. He could not focus. His teacher, Master Elara, wanted to help him. She gave him a difficult test. She gave him a silver bowl filled with water. She told him to walk through a dark place called the Valley of Echoes. She said, "Do not spill the water." Kale walked into the valley. At first, he was fine. But soon, strange things happened. The valley showed him his fears. He heard voices that said he was weak. He saw wolves running toward him. He was terrified. He wanted to run away. But Kale remembered the rule. He looked at the water. He walked slowly. He did not let his fear control his feet. Then, at the end of the valley, he saw a shadow. The shadow looked like him, but evil. It held a sword. It tried to strike him. This was the hardest moment. Kale had to choose, believe the fear or believe the truth. Kale chose the truth. He stood still. He did not move. The sword passed through him like air. It was not real. When Kale reached the other side, he looked back. The valley was empty. There were no monsters. There were no wolves. The scary things were only pictures in his mind. Kale learned a great lesson that day. He learned that we cannot stop the world from being noisy. But if we focus on our goal, the noise cannot hurt us. My name is Elara, and I have been the master of this temple for 40 years. I have seen many students come and go. But I remember Kale very clearly. When Kale first came to me, I saw a young man with great potential. His body was strong. He could lift the heaviest stones and shoot arrows further than anyone else. But his eyes were always moving. He was always looking around, worrying, checking, doubting. I knew that his biggest enemy was not outside the temple walls. It was inside his own head. I knew I had to send him to the Valley of Echoes. It is a cruel test. I know. Many people think I am hard on my students. But you cannot learn to swim if you never touch the water. And you cannot learn to control your mind if you never face your own fears. I stood by the iron gate and watched him walk away. To my eyes, the valley was just a quiet, dark forest. It was peaceful, But I knew that for Kale, it was a nightmare. I saw him stumble. I saw him duck his head to avoid invisible monsters. I saw him shaking with terror. My heart wanted to call out to him. I wanted to shout, "Kale! It is not real. It is just a tree." But I stayed silent. If I told him the truth, he would never learn. He had to find the silence for himself. Then came the moment of the shadow. I saw him stop on the path. He stood there for a long time. I held my breath. I was afraid he would drop the bowl. I was afraid he would run back to the gate, defeated. But then, he did something beautiful. He stopped fighting. He stopped reacting. He just stood still and let the moment pass. When he walked up the stairs to me, I saw a different man. The anxious boy was gone. His eyes were calm. The storm inside him had finally run out of rain. I smiled because I knew he understood the secret. You do not defeat your demons by fighting them. You defeat them by realizing they are only shadows, and so Kale's journey in the valley ended. But his life as a true master began. He learned that the most important strength was not in his muscles, but in his ability to be still. Friends, we do not live in a mountain temple. We do not carry silver bowls of water through dark forests. But, in a way, we are all walking through our own valley of echoes every day. The world around us is very noisy. Maybe you have a wolf of fear telling you that you are not good enough. Maybe you have a shadow of doubt telling you that your English will never improve, or that your dreams are too big. These voices can feel very real. They can make you want to stop walking. But remember, Kale. Remember that the noise is just an echo. The wolves cannot bite you. The shadows cannot cut you. They only have power if you look at them. True discipline is not about forcing the world to be quiet. That is impossible. True discipline is simply this: keeping your eyes on your own bowl of water and taking one step at a time. The moral of the story is simple. You cannot control the noise of the world, but you can always control the stillness of your own hands. If this story helped you find a moment of calm today, please click the like button. It helps other learners find these stories, too. And if you want to practice your English writing, answer this question in the comments. What is one distraction or monster that you want to ignore this week? I would love to read your answers. Thank you for listening. Keep your focus steady, and I will see you in the next story.